On today's episode of The Unwritten Rule, we did a big draft recap for Mizzou. Talked with our resident draft expert, Jacob Infante, had him on just to give his take on Armand going to the Jets, Luther to the Bears. Also got a bunch, did a deep dive on Luther, especially with Payton and Infante both being Bears fans. So went really in depth to the fit there and all that stuff. And so it was a great conversation with Infante. He also talked a bunch about Marcus Bryant going to the Patriots, and obviously some of the UDFA guys, Brady ending up with Armand on the Jets, Theo Weiss to the Dolphins, and Infante touched on all those guys as well. So just wanted to do a big draft recap, get that knocked out, and get some final takeaways from the draft process for all those guys. Did have a news item at the top, too, to talk about with a player in the portal still who will visit Mizzou this week. That is a name we're watching. So talked about him at the top of the show, then kicked it to Infante, finished with quick hits. We'll be back to more typical offseason news as we continue the spring heading into summer here. But wanted to get Infante back on and get his take on Armand and Luther and Marcus and where they all ended up and how much of a good fit they can be in the pros. So great conversation with him. We finished with quick hits. We'll dive right into it. The Unwritten Rule starts right now.
Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Payton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Monday, April 28th, and we will have the draft recap in a few minutes, but we have a quick note we want to hit on before we kick it to ourselves with our good friend Jacob Infante and his great cat, who also joined for that interview. It should be fun. Very, very good times at the NFL draft. I went. It was cool, apart from getting locked out to start, but we'll touch on that in the Infante interview. But we have some news, and I will throw it to our portal expert, the man who is very much looking forward to all of this being over so he can have a break from looking up players and visitors and stuff. But we do have some notes on a potential visitor on the football front. Kenny, who should people keep an eye on this week visitor wise, as we obviously the portal, entering the portal is now closed, but obviously still guys in it looking for new places, and Mizzou linked to one of those. You can see his name if you're watching on the YouTube. But Kenny, who do Mizzou fans need to keep an eye on this week?
Ohio defensive tackle Braylon Henderson, 1 year of eligibility remaining. I will take a little victory lap here. When he entered the portal, I sent it to you guys, and I said, this looks like someone Mizzou could add as a depth guy. No one gave me any props for that. I even sent it to you guys again and said, like, hey, I called this. No one responded. You guys are trying to silence me. You don't want me to have.
I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah, but I called it. But it took a while. But Mizzou offered him this past week. His agency told me that he arrived for his visit on Sunday. He'll leave on Tuesday. So maybe something on that Monday that he's there. The time you guys are listening to this, maybe the visit goes well. Maybe he does commit. I don't necessarily think he would be a starting option right away for Mizzou. You don't really want to buy too much into his ranking, but he is a 2-star just on the transfer portal ranking. But 1 year of eligibility, played his entire career at the MAC. Good tackle numbers, but it's just a guy that I think that they need some experienced depth at that position. It doesn't look like they're trying to look for a home run hit like Chris McClellan a couple cycles ago or so. It's just one of those moves where you're going to add a little bit of depth. You have a couple scholarships to use, and they're still looking at some corners out there, but this is the guy to know this week.
Yeah, I had remarked I was a little surprised that they weren't at least looking at like someone at defensive tackle for depth. I've said this every time we've had to talk about it. The spring portal is not very good. There's really not a lot of big fish in the pond this time around, and I think people are starting to realize that you're not going to find many starters in this kind of phase. You're looking at really patching some holes in the ship more than anything else. Braylon Henderson, the listed height and weight 6'2", 280. That's pretty small. I mean, Sterling Webb, who Mizzou took last cycle, is kind of seen as more of that smaller, kind of maybe more of a pass rusher guy. He's 6'1", 295. So I would really not think this is anything more than depth, but I do like getting a few more bodies in the room. You can never really, and we've seen it. I mean, Mizzou likes to rotate in a lot of D tackles. They like to rotate in D ends. So wouldn't be an objectionable pickup by any stretch, I would say.
19 tackles last year, had a sack as well on PFF. Didn't actually grade out snaps wise for anything to analyze from there. So yeah, I think purely a depth piece if he does indeed come in, which we'll keep an eye on for Braylon Henderson and some of these other names. But wanted to touch on just one quick portal name to know, of course, before we kick to ourselves, might be a name you've seen on message boards and all that fun stuff. But we won't dilly-dally. This is a show about the NFL draft recap. Thank you to Infante for joining us. We'll kick it to ourselves with that.
And now for something completely different.
Okay, we now welcome back on our good friend and our show's resident draft expert, Jacob Infante, fresh off his travels back from Green Bay to watch the NFL draft in person. Infante does some excellent work. We are his first post-draft podcast, though, so it shows where his priorities are. So thank you for that, Mr. Infante, for making the time. How was the draft overall? How did you enjoy your experience being up there before we dive into these? We're going to get your takes on the 3 Mizzou draftees, some UDFA guys too. But how'd you like the draft in Green Bay, the setup there?
I thought it was pretty sweet, honestly. I had always been meaning to go to the draft. This is my first time going, and it was cool to be able to hear the picks, going on in person. Also just to experience like how many different fan bases there were. It was a cool community coming together of obviously a lot of Packers fans, but a nice hodgepodge of different NFL fandoms. Everyone was nice. All the Packers fans were nice, even though I was wearing my Bears gear. And then like all the other fan bases, like we'd give each other like playful ribbing, stuff like that, but nothing heated at all. Like everyone was, pretty happy to be there.
Cordial.
Yeah. I mean, and so there's one time after the Packers drafted Matthew Golden, the Texas receiver, I went up to a couple of celebrating Packers fans and I was like, I hate how much I like that pick for you guys. And then they're like, hell yeah, man. And then, they gave me,
That's great. That's great.
So it was, nice experience, very friendly. But yeah, definitely a good time. I think Green Bay, other than the first day where they completely underestimated how many people would be there, I think otherwise Green Bay did a fantastic job.
Yeah, so I'm throwing that in there. My quick draft story. I also went to the draft. Payton and Kenny, first of all, I know the 3 of us went to the draft in KC 2 years ago when it was there. I was a little disappointed with, and it is cool. There was still every fan base there. There was a lot more of a variety of jerseys at the draft we were at in KC than there was in Green Bay. Much more centralized of Packers fans, which I think makes sense. But I was a little disappointed. I remember we should have kept track like at the crazy jerseys we saw and like the different names and teams and stuff. But it's always still fun. And then, yeah, they underestimated and I was locked out of the draft entrance for about 2 hours and missed the first 10 picks. But that's okay. We made it in, saw, of course, the man who we're going to talk about first on the Mizzou front, Armand Membou. Jacob went number 7 to the Jets. Felt like a pick that had been mocked pretty frequently, a team that, was seen to seem like they wanted him and obviously ended up taking him. So I don't think, I know I wasn't overly shocked being in there watching him get picked. What was your take on Membou to the Jets and that fit, and how do you like it for him? Obviously very exciting, of course, too, to just see a Mizzou guy go top 10.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, and looking at some of the teams that were picking in the top 10, I always thought that the 2 best fits for Membou would be the Jets and the Saints. And I thought those specifically because both of those teams are going to allow Membou to slide into his natural position of right tackle. Good to see you there.
Nice. There we go. Producer Kenny's cooking.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I think that this allows Membou to stay in his natural position of right tackle, which is huge. I was never in the camp of Membou can only play right tackle. I feel like, if he's able to play left tackle, if teams project him there, then, he should be able to have the chance there. But now that's not, it's not a discussion here. So landed with the Jets, I think, is tremendous. I think it's a great pick for the Jets, honestly, just best player available, really. Now you have him at right tackle, Olu Fashanu at left tackle. That's two super athletic, young offensive tackles. And that's a position where if those guys play really well, you're going to pay him a lot of money. So to be able to have two young, super talented guys for cheap, I think is a huge asset for that Jets offensive line. And I mean, just from a spending perspective, it allows you to spend so much money elsewhere for the, the remainder of the 3 years that Fashanu is going to be on his rookie deal, and then the 4 years that Membu is going to be on his. And even if you pick up the 5th-year option, it's relatively cheaper than what you'll probably end up getting if he plays well. So I like Membu landing number 7. I mean, he's a top 10 player in this class. I can go on and on about him. His the size, the tremendous athleticism, the power, the technical improvements that he made in 2024, just how quick of a learner he seems to be. I'm a big fan. So I think that for him to be able to land in a comfortable spot with the Jets where they have a good offensive line around him. I mean, obviously I mentioned Fashanu, but they've got John Simpson, the guard that they signed in free agency. I think it was last year. They've got Elijah Vera-Tucker, who's really good. Joe Tippmann is an underrated center, in my opinion. And then they brought in Josh Myers as well for depth. So that's a pretty talented Jets offensive line. I think that that's going to help Membu's transition a little bit to where it's going to maybe ease any potential learning curve from a processing standpoint. Because, obviously it's a faster, more physical game in the NFL, but I think that if, Membu's surrounded by talented offensive linemen, I think that that's going to help relieve a lot of the pressure. So I think as far as top 10 picks go, I think this is probably the best landing spot for Membu's career, at least in my opinion.
Heck yeah. Payton, you have anything to add on Mr. Membu?
No, I mean, Jacob's the expert, obviously. I mean, nobody that watched him at Mizzou. I mean, okay, everyone's probably a little surprised that it got to the point where he was a top 10 pick, but I don't think anyone at Mizzou is surprised that he projects kind of as a above average, if not great, offensive lineman in the NFL. I mean, he was good every step of the way. He played at Mizzou. It's pretty and I know Drinkwitz has said he regrets it in hindsight, but it's pretty unbelievable that they had guys like Mitch Walters and Connor Wood playing on the O-line before Armand Membu got a shot.
Yeah, definitely a really fun rise to see. I'm excited to see what he does with the Jets. Seems like he's joining a good offensive line room there, and I'm excited to see how he sticks. All right, this is where we have to pass the reins. Infante alluded to it. He was at the draft in his Bears gear. Payton, as listeners will know, is a Bears fan. Payton, can you tell it like your abridged version of the story of Luther going to the Bears? I think some of the people need to know, but I will let you two drive this conversation. Luther Burden, of course, was the next Mizzou player to go. He goes 7th pick in the 2nd round to the Chicago Bears. Obviously a bummer that he missed out on round 1, but Payton, I'll let you take this one and please tell part of the story of your reaction to seeing Luther going to your favorite team.
Sure. I also want to know Jacob's reaction to it.
Yeah.
But I was about to make dinner, but I knew the Bears pick was coming up, so I set my plate on the counter before I put any of the food on it to heat it up. I'm watching over my dogs this weekend. I'm home alone. And the Bears pick Luther Burden. I see Luther Burden's name come up. I hear his name called. I was so excited and not thinking. I slap my hand on the counter, fling the plate through the air. It hits the ground. I was screaming bloody murder in excitement. My dogs thought I was really angry at them or something, so they ran away from me. I had to go calm them down. But it was a very, very. I immediately called my brother and my dad, who are obviously Bears fans as well. It was a very good moment. Very, very good moment that a player of Luther Burden's caliber ridiculously falls to the 2nd round, and the Bears get to benefit from it. Jacob, I'm going to let you kind of take over. Obviously, you're the expert here, but I'm really excited for the fit here. I think Ben Johnson has the world at his fingertips with this pick. I'm very, very confident that this one will wind up working out.
Yeah, so it's definitely it's a tough story to top for sure, but I look at it as, so when I was there, the second day of the draft was a little bit less crowded, so I was able to be out there near the stage while the picks were going on, and I heard the Bears take, I think it was Des White, he was a former Bears receiver, announced the pick that they were taking Luther Burden, and I was there with my brother, who goes up to school at St. Norbert, which is 15 minutes
shout
away.
out.
Yeah, shout out St. Norbert, 15 minutes away from Green Bay, and I was losing my mind. I was jumping up and down like a little kid again. My brother was really stoked about it too, because obviously, with me being a Mizzou fan, with me graduating from Mizzou, he he followed the team a little bit and knows how good Luther was in college. He was so stoked about it. We were like jumping up and down and stuff. And then I was like, shoot, okay, I gotta get out of this crowd. I gotta write my article or whatever the hell. So I was, and then as I was going through, maneuvering my way through all the people, I was just cackling to myself. I'm like, no way. But yeah, I can dig into the pick obviously, but I was very happy. I was very happy. I wasn't expecting it at all. I didn't think Luther was going to be there at 39, so I didn't even anticipate him as a potential option for the Bears. But here we are.
That's what I was curious to know, was that I was like, did you guys think ever that he would fall that far, and could he be an option for Ben Johnson? But it clearly sounds like he didn't. It's obviously a bummer, like Payton said, that he falls to 39 like he did. But yeah, Infante, I guess when you can put your objective cap on, I'm sure, I know you and Payton now have a lot riding on him being successful and continuing to make your favorite pro team happy like you did in college. But how will Luther Burden do that? I know Ben Johnson called him a stud. I saw that interview clip from his presser. Seems like a guy who's really excited to use him. How do you see him fitting in with the Bears and potentially like being a big part of this passing attack on a team that's trying to build here?
Yeah, I think that the name of the game here is versatility, and I'm super excited to see how Ben Johnson utilizes all the weapons that the Bears have. I was saying, so going into the second round, I was saying, all right, so the Bears drafted Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan. He played about half of his snaps in college out of the slot. So I'm like, okay, you don't really have a great slot receiver. He's basically your new slot, sort of. You're just going to run a lot of 12 personnel, having two tight ends out on the field. But you bring in Luther now. I think, and you guys can attest, I think he projects best as a slot receiver. I think he played his best football out of the slot at Mizzou. So now you look at it as, Luther slides in right away as your wide receiver 3, in my opinion, coming in with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. That's a super talented young wide receiver group. And I know some Bears fans are going to get flashbacks to last year where everyone's like, oh, it's the best receiver trio in the league. But I look at this, and I also look at the addition of Colston Loveland now, and I look at the offensive line additions they made. It's a much deeper offense. It's a much deeper roster. It's a much deeper group of weapons. I'm taking Colston Loveland over paying, $6-7 million to Gerald Everett to have less than 10 catches in an entire season. I'm taking that any day. But as far as Luther goes, I think he's going to be your primary slot receiver. I don't have to go too deep. I mean, Mizzou fans know what he's good at. He's, in my opinion, the best receiver after the catch in this draft class. And Bears general manager Ryan Poles said the same thing in his post-pick press conference. So that's always good to hear. I mean, great athlete. He's dense. He's densely built. He's thick. He's a powerful runner, explosive, good hands, great ball skills, lot to like there. And I think that as he continues to develop as a route runner, because I know he came in super raw in his freshman year, showed some promise out of the slot. I think as the Bears get him into a deeper route tree, I think that's going to be the key thing to see exactly if he's going to fulfill all his potential. I think you have a guy who's talented like Luther, as physically gifted and as good at catching passes as Luther is. I mean, he's going to produce to some extent no matter what, even with all the names around him on that offense. But I think the key is going to be how well he can build out his route tree in the NFL, which I don't doubt that he can do. I don't have any doubts. I think if he meets his expectations, I said that he's got the upside of a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. Obviously, it's going to be different now because, Rome Odunze is in the mix. He also has wide receiver 1 upside. DJ Moore currently is, maybe on the lower end, but still a bona fide wide receiver 1. It's a really deep group. So I think Luther comes in as your immediate slot, but you also have, DJ Moore can run routes out of the slot sometimes. Colston Loveland, now the tight end, can run routes out of the slot. You can line up Luther out wide. You can, have him on jet sweeps and end arounds. I mean, maybe sometimes you can have him in the backfield. I don't know. I think Ben Johnson's going to have a ton of fun playing around with someone that athletic and that explosive like Luther Burden.
Jacob, you kind of touched on it there, and that's kind of what I wanted to ask you a bit. I mean, this draft, obviously the first 2 picks were getting Ben Johnson some toys to play with, obviously. And like you said, you have like 3 different guys in Moore, Loveland, and Burden that really are going to probably play out of the slot a good amount. And obviously, Odunze is going to stay outside the whole time. But I am curious, and you touched on it there, maybe they split him into the backfield a bit. That was a wrinkle Mizzou at times would employ, to have Luther line up in the backfield. They didn't do it much. I honestly would have liked to have seen it more. And a big thing for that a lot of people thought the Bears would do is kind of invest a high pick on a running back. I know a lot of people, I don't think it's any secret the Bears wanted Genty. A lot of people pointed to one of the Ohio State running backs, even on day 3. They only took 1 running back, and it was in the 7th round. Is Luther Burden at not a true running back, obviously, but maybe how Kyle Shanahan used Deebo Samuel a few years ago? Is that something we might see from Luther Burden? Is that something you think could work?
Maybe a little bit, yeah. And obviously, I don't think we're going to see Luther getting like 100 carries by any means, but I think that to an extent, I see Luther in a similar role to Jamison Williams of what, Ben Johnson had with the Lions last year. And, to that point, like I pulled up the stats here, Jamison Williams had 58 catches for, 1,001 yards, 7 touchdowns, but he also had 11 carries for 61 yards and a touchdown. I wouldn't be shocked if Luther ends up running the ball more than that. And, obviously, that doesn't factor in, it doesn't factor in like end around, or it doesn't factor in jet sweeps because those technically count as forward passes. But still, I expect there to be a decent amount of motion utilized with Luther because, again, when you have a guy who's that talented with the ball in his hands, you need to take advantage of that in some capacity. Obviously, I know that that's something that Mizzou utilized to some extent as well, having him as a weapon in the run game. So I'm definitely going to be interested in seeing exactly how they maximize that because I do expect him to play some sort of role in the run game. Obviously, you're drafting him as a receiver first and foremost, but like you said, the Bears didn't draft anyone at running back until round 7. So, that indicates it's still going to be DeAndre Swift carrying, the bulk of the carries there. But if you bring in the 7th rounder, Kyle Monagai, you bring in Roshan Johnson, who was a draft pick in 2023. Who knows?
Travis Homer's still in there.
Travis Homer's still in the mix. And, he's going to play a lot on special teams, but he's rosterable. So I do expect Luther to play some sort of role in the run game because you have a guy that big, that fast. You need to take advantage.
I think I saw was Jamison Williams texted Ben Johnson and said, you have a stud just like me. Obviously knows Luther a little bit, being another St. Louis guy. So it's a lot of similarities there from the demographic standpoint as well as the game on field. Yeah, I'm so excited for it. I was texting with a couple Bears fans and that kind of echoing that Infante. Just people were like, how are they going to use him or whatever? How does he go? And it's just like, yeah, you can do some backfield stuff. You can get really flashy. And we obviously saw Ben Johnson and like how fun that offense was in Detroit. So I'm sure you guys are excited as much as the Bears. The Bears have been due for this. It feels like for quite some time. Do you see? Is he a good option for like a Caleb Williams in terms of their play style meshing, or is Luther just one of those like it doesn't, like you said, he's going to kind of get his no matter what. Doesn't really matter who's throwing him the ball. I don't know if there's any sort of good synergy there. Maybe that's a dumb question, but does he fit well with what Caleb tries to do, or is it just a matter of this guy has a unique skill set? You throw him in the offense, you figure out how to mesh him in later.
I think it's a bit of both. I think he's trying to step on the computer here.
We got a cat in the chat channel for people not watching on the YouTube. What does he think of the pick?
He seems to be on board with it. He's been pretty chill throughout the whole process. Tough to read sometimes, but
sure.
Yeah,
that's very astute.
Oh, of course. So, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? I got distracted.
I was just, you don't even have to go into too depth. I was just curious, like with Caleb Williams, is that like, is there a nice synergy you see there, or is Luther just a guy with how unique his skill set is, and particularly with so much of it being after the catch? Is it just you could throw him in whatever offense, and it's more of maybe a matter of the coaching staff, or does he maybe have is he a good weapon for Caleb Williams specifically with how he plays?
Yeah, I mean, I think Luther's going to get his no matter what. Sure. I do think that it's going to come down more to coaching than it is the actual quarterback itself with him. Obviously, when you have someone who's as physically gifted as Burden, as good after the catch, as good in space as him, you need to make sure that you're taking advantage of that properly, because he's not just an average receiver where you just run a slant route across the middle of the field, call it a day. You can get a lot more creative with him. But that said, I do think that Caleb will like the out of structure play that Luther brings as well. Obviously, people who watch Caleb Williams at USC know that he's capable of, scrambling, extending the play with his legs, when plays break down, keeping the play alive, scanning, continuing to, make play, to read the field and then, hit someone there. I think Luther does a good job too of, maybe you didn't see it as much with Brady Cook. The cat is everywhere.
Professional setup we got here.
Of course. But I think you didn't see it a ton at Mizzou because, Brady Cook's a different type of quarterback. But still, when plays break down, I think Luther's creative enough to where he can extend the play with, how he runs certain routes and how he plays off script. I think that's something that could mesh well with Caleb Williams for sure. I mean, I think it's going to come down more to definitely going to come down more to, coaching than the actual quarterback style, in my opinion. But it's still going to be something where, it's going to play a role.
I think your cat really wants to talk about Marcus Bryant now, but we're just going to lump kind of him in with this next group. A little bit surprising that he was the third and last guy taken off the board in the actual draft for Missouri. I know he even, I don't want to point to someone else's grades other than yours, Jacob, but some people even had him higher than guys like Theo Weiss, Johnny Walker, Brady Cook, just grade-wise. So he went in the 7th round to the Patriots, 4th pick in that round, last guy taken, of course. But a couple more like UDFAs. Brady Cook is going with Armand Membu to the Jets. Theo Weiss is headed to Miami. Same with running back Nate Noel. Defensive end Johnny Walker is going to be with the Broncos. This is a big one that I kind of want to hear you talk about is long snapper Trey Flint. Got a rookie camp invite with the Chiefs. A couple more rookie camp invites. Cameron Johnson, offensive lineman with the Cleveland Browns. And then Christian Williams, defensive tackle, got a rookie camp or rookie mini camp invite with the Broncos, joining Johnny Walker. Walk us through some of those ones, any ones that you want to talk about.
Yeah, so I'll start with Marcus Bryant because admittedly, I know I was on the show and I think, when I mentioned that to you guys, I thought that, there would be obviously more than just those two Mizzou players drafted. I thought it was going to be one of Brady Cook, Theo Weiss, or Johnny Walker. I honestly didn't anticipate Marcus Bryant was going to get picked. I do know there were some, scouting services that had him a little bit higher. My just thinking is, going off of the fact that, Bryant didn't get invited to the combine, didn't get like a massive, all-star game invite. Typically that's a an indicator of if you play at the Senior Bowl, if you play at the Shrine Bowl, you're probably going to get drafted. And Brian didn't get invited to those, but at the same time, though, I mean, I'm happy for him. I think there's definitely a lot of physical upside there. I mean, between his time at SMU and Missouri, I mean, you saw that, the size, you saw the, impressive athleticism for a guy that big. Obviously he's a super tall dude. So I think off of upside alone and the experience that he has, I mean, I guess it makes sense that he got drafted. I definitely think he's more raw, like as compared to an Armand Membou, where, yeah, sure, Bryant's taller than Membou, but a drawback of that is naturally he's going to be higher in his pads. It's going to be tougher for him to stay low and maintain leverage there. And I know they always say the lower man wins, so that can be a little tough for Bryant sometimes. And I don't think his hand usage is as refined as Membou at this stage, but definitely an interesting pick for sure. I think he'll certainly compete for a depth spot on that Patriots offensive line. I think it's good that they're, continuing to invest along that offensive line. I know they brought in, obviously Will Campbell was their first pick, which I was a fan of. And then now bringing in Marcus Bryant as well in the 7th round. That's someone who can potentially compete for a swing tackle spot. I don't expect him to play a significant amount right away or anything. But it's good to have a guy, take a shot on a guy with those physical tools, that size and athleticism, and just, have him develop on your bench, on your practice squad, maybe depending on how he does in camp. And then down the line, see if you can take full advantage of those tools.
Any of those UDFA guys really stick out to you?
I want to shout out the Jets quarterback room too. That now contains a grouping of Brady Cook, Adrian Martinez, Jordan Travis, Tyrod Taylor, and Justin Fields. When I looked at that names collectively, I was just a funny hodgepodge of guys. But
that's a squad right there.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the QB rooms of all time. Infante, who do you like in the UDFA pickups?
Yeah, so I think out of Mizzou's undrafted rookies, I'm most interested in Johnny Walker, honestly, because looking into this whole process, he performed well at the Shrine Bowl, performed well at Mizzou, obviously this past year. He was someone where I anticipated, I was a little surprised he didn't get a combine invite. So I was still holding out hope that maybe he'd get like a 6th or 7th round, look, anything like that. So I'm a little bit surprised that he didn't make it to the combine. A little surprised he went undrafted, but at the same time, I'm interested to see how he fits into that Broncos rotation. I mean, you have your starters in place, Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bonito, and Denver off the edge. I mean, Nick Bonito is an incredible talent, especially. And that just looking at the depth necessarily. I mean, you brought in Jonah Ellis in the 3rd round last year out of Utah. I believe it was out of Utah. I know that's where the Ellis family is usually from. And then Q Robinson you brought in from Alabama in the 4th round this year. I know he's a rotational guy at Bama, but tremendous athlete. But outside of that, I mean, I don't think it's a super deep edge rusher group in Denver. Honestly, I think that there's a possibility where Walker sneaks into the 53-man roster if he performs well enough in camp, if he performs well enough in the preseason, which I think he can, personally. Obviously, seeing what he was able to do in the SEC, the motor he plays with, the quickness and power, I think that there's potential there. So I guess out of the undrafted signings that Mizzou had, I think he probably has the best chance of making it to the 53-man roster. And I know that, Brady Cook's got a very bizarre quarterback room he's competing with on the Jets. I don't know if he's going to make the team, but, either way, that's still going to be interesting to watch and monitor. But yeah, I think Johnny Walker, that's probably the one guy where I can point to. It's like, all right, I think that's probably a guy who's going to make the team.
Yeah. Go ahead, Payton. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Theo Weiss, I know obviously with Mike McDaniel, I mean, it's basically Waddle and Hill or bust a lot of the time with them. Any chance you could see him clawing his way onto the Dolphins 53-man?
I mean, it's possible. I think especially, maybe if the Dolphins do trade Tyreek Hill after the draft here, which I mean we'll see if they do. Obviously, I don't necessarily know if they do, but I think that that would obviously help out Theo's case of making the team. I do think it's a pretty loaded room of young guys, though. I mean, I know they brought in uh, Taj Washington from USC last year. They brought in Malik Washington from Virginia last year. So they have some young guys on that roster in the back end of that receiver room that they like. I think Theo doesn't have the explosiveness, the speed that a lot of those guys have, but he is probably, a smarter route runner and just a more, reliable sort of possession target than maybe some of the other guys. So I wouldn't bet money on him being on the 53-man roster, but at the same time, if he performs well enough and, if he gets a little help from the Dolphins trading Tyreek, then, maybe. I think he's more of a practice squad guy, at least in year one, but I think down the line, he's someone who could end up cracking the 53 as a depth piece, relatively often if he does continue to develop.
I'll throw one thing out there too. He's competing with Andrew Armstrong for a roster spot.
Oh, yeah.
Mizzou fans might know Andrew Armstrong. He's played at Arkansas, but he was also a target for Mizzou. He had an OV set up as a transfer after the 2022 season. Ended up not making that trip, and Mizzou got the OVs instead. So Mizzou ended up getting maybe the better wide receiver too.
There you go. Little lore there. Yeah, I'm intrigued with him in Noel at Miami, and I think you make a really good point about Walker too and Infante. I really like the fit there in Denver and like how he could maybe break into that roster. I was a little disappointed in the lack of kind of hype around him too, because I think he's a really, really good player. So I hope he can stick. Infante, thanks to you and your cat very much for joining us post draft. I know you've been a busy man in the last few days. Kenny, is there you want to shout out your tweet? Is this?
No, I just put it on there. I mean, I kind of
Okay.
called this 3 years ago.
Oh yeah, that's from 2022. There you go.
Yep. Bring Caleb Williams to Luther Burden.
There you
Those
go.
were the days.
Retweet yourself. There you go. You called it. But yeah, Infante, thank you for joining us. I'm sure we'll be in touch with more draft people. Maybe we'll have a check-in. When Luther Burden is leading the league in receiving yards with the Bears, we'll just have you and Payton come on and do a rant. Maybe Kenny and I won't even join. We'll just let that be the episode. But thanks to you, and get some rest and recover from the post-draft things, and we'll finish this rest of the show with quick hits. Okay, quick hits time. Thank you to our resident draft expert, Jacob Infante. We'll finish out the show. Kenny, start with you. Your Tiger in the Wild this week, my friend. Oh, wait, we have Ken Sports Shorts. Sorry. I scrolled completely down. Kenny texted us and said the Daily Dozen quiz wasn't working, which honestly just spares Payton and I from having to suffer through that and drag him down like an anchor and have him carry us. So that's probably good. Kenny, what do you have in lieu of a Daily Dozen quiz this week?
The funny thing is about the Daily Dozen, it only had 8 slots open. Like it was just missing one, and it couldn't tell you how many people had played today. The one that it was missing was the celebrity mashup, which was like the best one to miss. But
Yeah.
if you answered all of them, it doesn't tell you like at the end, like you can't click finish, you can't click figure out the answer you got wrong. But I got 5 out of the 8 available, so it was still like a pretty fun one.
Okay.
But some of them, like it was a hockey one, I had no idea who the player was.
Payton, that's honestly not a very good clip for him. I mean, the standards
better than we would have done.
Probably.
Okay. My Ken Sports Short this week. This was a fun one too. Mizzou football posted a graphic of all the draft picks since 2005, and I was thinking in the back of my head this would have been very helpful a couple months ago when I was just quizzing you guys about that, even like last year when I was doing it. So I got this one. Since 2005, there's been 4 drafts where at least one Mizzou player went in both the first and second rounds. I can give you the years, and then you guys could guess the players. Of course, pretty easy one. 2025 first rounder and a second rounder.
Luther
Burden. 2024.
That was last year. That was Darius Robinson and Ennis Rakestraw.
Yeah.
Correct. Now we get kind of like a tougher one, just because you'll know the names, but you might not know exactly when they were drafted. I'm going to pull it up on my computer as well, just so I can give you the round and pick number and maybe team if that helps. But 2015, there was 1 first rounder.
This would be this. No, I don't think Charles Harris was 15. That was longer. 15.
Wasn't Alden Smith.
Is this like Marcus Golden?
Marcus Golden went in the second round. So there's two
Of
second
this year?
rounders. Yes, two second rounders in
two
2015, one first rounder.
So one of the
If you want teams or positions, just let me know.
Was it one of the O linemen?
There was an offensive lineman in the second round, yes.
Oh, second round.
Oh, wow. So this
Mitch Morse wasn't 2015, was he?
It is Mitch Morse.
Mitch Morse?
He was
Okay.
round 2, pick 17 in the second round with the Chiefs.
Okay.
Very
and so
nice.
we still need this first rounder?
Yes. You're
What
gonna kick
team?
yourself. That'll give it away, but the Broncos.
Oh, you're right. Shane Ray.
Oh,
That is
yeah.
correct. Shane Ray. All right. Guys are off to a good start. Last one is 2009. This is going to be a really tough one. There's 2 first rounders and 1 second rounder.
Might have to just say the teams already.
No. Hold on. Let's think about this. So, 09. Jeremy Maclin is one of them.
Oh,
Correct.
yeah.
Pick 19 by the Eagles.
Yeah.
So there's 2 second rounders?
No,
2 first,
firsts,
1 second.
and a second
2 first,
rounder.
1 second.
Let me get positions.
The other first rounder was a defensive tackle, and then the second rounder was a defensive back.
We name this defensive back all the time, and then I'm always mad
Like
when
a cornerback or a
wrong.
safety?
It just says DB.
Oh, okay. So is it what's his name? He played.
He was
in the league
listed as a
forever.
safety.
Okay, so it's not even who I'm thinking of. DB. Who is the safety? I don't think I know the safety. Is the D lineman? The D lineman's not Sheldon Richardson. That would have been later.
This DB was a Pro Bowler.
I don't know
2012.
who it is.
What's his initials?
WM.
Boy. If any older fans are watching this, they're gonna be screaming at us because I have no idea who this is.
We're sorry.
Let's go to the other first rounder then. What other D
DB.
lineman? I mean, this is
D
D line zoo. It's not Coney Ely. Coney Ely was a second rounder one year. What team did this guy get drafted to?
So the first rounder was pick 32, Steelers defensive tackle. The second rounder was the 23rd pick in that round by the Falcons. He only ever played for the Falcons.
I'm
out.
No clue on that second rounder. Really have none.
All right, the second rounder is William Moore.
William Moore.
We could have sat here all day. I wouldn't have gotten that one.
Nope. Who was the D lineman?
Ziggy Hood.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I
my
should have had
God.
that one. I
Yeah.
don't think I
Played a
would have
long
gotten to
time.
it, but I should have had that one. That was the last one.
Yeah.
There you go. The legacy continues for Mizzou draftees. Tiger in the Wild, we go now officially. Kenny, your Tiger in the Wild.
My Tiger in the Wild is another Missouri assistant leaving in this offseason. That's Dalen King returning to Cleveland State following Rob Summers there, the former Missouri assistant, and worked with Gates at Cleveland State as well. So a lot of familiarity, a lot of overlap between these two, and just another position to fill. That's 4 now. That's your player development director, your assistant director, and then 2 assistant coaches. Maybe things can switch around. Maybe some positions may be erased. Other guys move up, but still no word on what that's going to look like. And probably a lot easier to reel in those last 2 transfers as well and fill out that roster once you got your coaching staff set. Still a lot of moving parts, but still a good amount of time. Even with the portal closed, there's still guys out there. Still eligibility issues that some people are trying to resolve. So there's time. It's fine to have a quiet period. I do enjoy it.
I'm sure you do.
Kenny's probably hyped.
Yeah, and on top of that, you got the GM search, which I wonder if that might be the priority right now for Dennis Gates, and just the program in general. We'll see what happens. A lot of these guys are getting like bigger jobs, like you said, Dalen King being one of them. In the last 2 years, we saw guys get bigger assistant coaching jobs at VMI. So just kind of a natural thing for coaching staffs.
the Missouri to Cleveland State. Wait, sorry, the Cleveland State to Missouri to Cleveland State pipeline is real. It's a circle. Payton, your Tiger in the Wild.
My Tiger in the Wild is going to be Talon Chandler. Quickly found a new home in the transfer portal. He's going to another renowned journalism school. He is a Northwestern Wildcat. So Talon Chandler is kind of a hyped up recruit. You know, they flipped him from Colorado, essentially. So it was kind of a big deal, but just no real path to playing time anytime soon at Mizzou. Can definitely, I'm sure, see the field a lot quicker at Northwestern.
Big guy. I texted you guys that he is very solid for a second-year college guy. You can see it if you're watching with us on the YouTube. He is built.
I didn't want to be. I don't mean this in a mean way, but I did get reminded of the Spider-Verse, the villain from Spider-Verse.
Kingpin.
What is the Kingpin? That's right. They reminded me of that meme a little bit, which isn't. I don't want that to be a dig. I hope Talon Chandler does well at Northwestern, but that did pop into my head. My Tiger in the Wild, going back to a little NFL draft talk, it's going to be Ennis Rakestraw. He quote tweeted, we know Ennis, you may, if you're also on X.com, the Everything app, it all happens on X as we are. You may see Ennis posting frequently as he loved to get on the Twitter finger, or use his Twitter fingers in his Mizzou days, still is. He quote tweeted the Detroit Lions, who of course picked Dominic Lovett, the former Missouri and now Georgia wide receiver, in the 7th round. He quote tweeted it. Obviously, Ennis Rakestraw, member of the Lions last year, as we just touched on in the Ken Sports Shorts. Quote tweeted, said, "Back to the Mizzou days. They, of course, shared the field for 2 seasons before Lovett transferred to Georgia." So just kind of fun. They're sort of reunited there. I know Payton, I saw Payton shook his head, but kind of fun to see a few more former Mizzou teammates will go at it. There you go. Him tweeting about Luther Burden, too. He was on it watching his teammates get drafted, which I thought was fun.
Yeah, Ennis Rakestraw didn't get to play much. He dealt with injuries. A surprisingly strong Lions secondary last year. I'm sure he'll be looking to make that kind of year 2 leap. I wonder if the practices could always get a little heated between these two, because I know Ennis is like always kind of a big competitor. And obviously, I'm sure he's going to let him know a little bit about the way Lovett exited. I mean, when you look at this era, the NIL of Mizzou athletics, I really think still the highest profile exit for them, where they just straight up lost somebody, like not forced someone towards the door, just kind of got a guy poached, essentially. It felt like, not poached because he went through a real process, but just didn't pay up for a guy. Dominic Lovett is kind of the biggest one to me. That stands out for Mizzou.
You had guys this past cycle too, big 2024 signees. But when you look at the production and what you actually lost in Dominic Lovett, I do think he is number 1 on that list, because it's hard to, not have Williams Neri up there and what the potential would have been. But we know Mizzou is really focused on the production now and, continuing to retool and rebuild in that transfer portal.
No, I think you're both right. I mean, I remember where I remember where I was moment when Dominic Lovett transferred. Like that was a big deal. And yeah, like you can look at the freshmen the sting is just taken out of those a little bit for the simple fact that they didn't wear a Mizzou uniform for that long. Obviously it's going to suck to look back if Williams Neri is like an All-American defender. It's like, oh, what could have been? But Dominic Lovett had 2 really productive seasons. That year too, where he had like 800 receiving yards, was super exciting. He was kind of the future, and you had, potentially Luther coming in there and pairing with him and all that. So that was really exciting. So that was a bummer, but kind of fun to see him reunited with Ennis. Bit of a full circle moment there for Mizzou. Headlines. Kenny, your headline, sir.
This is a long one from the Philly Inquirer. Villanova gets portal point guard in Long Beach State transfer Devin Askew, who will play at his 5th school. Devin Askew, of course, was in the portal for a pretty long time. Early interest from Mizzou, nothing really materialized. Another guy I'll just throw out there real quick is Kennard Davis, who had, some interest from Mizzou, LSU, Ohio State was in there, but he committed to BYU, of course, a Vashon product. Early interest from Missouri, nothing ever really came of it or went too far. Like it did with BYU and some others. But back to Devin Askew. This is like the only fun thing I have to add here. I know this isn't weird or anything, but I was thinking about it before we started the show, before we were recording. he's been in college basketball for 3 presidential terms. And I know that's like not weird in like today's game, but you see a lot of basketball guys, leave early, go to the NBA, go pro. I mean, he's just been around so long. He's taking advantage of his eligibility. And I just think it's pretty cool. I mean, of course, 2 of them was the same president, Donald Trump, but I think that's cool that your entire basketball career went across 3 presidencies. He got to vote twice. Like, that's cool.
Yeah. No, that's not normal. That still is wild when you look at players' careers like that. I still, the best is just the ESPN when you're on their ESPN page and you click stats and it's just like, this is unbelievable. Like, I found another guy the other day that he started college when the 3 of us were still in high school. We're all the same age, and graduated left college, so to speak, the same year we graduated college, which is just wild to think about.
The thing about Askew was he was also a pretty massive prospect at high school, like a top 30 or 40 guy. Went to Kentucky, so he was not supposed to be around this long.
No. So yeah, this will be year 6. Started off at Kentucky, 1 year at Texas, 2 years at Cal, and then 1 season at Long Beach State. And now he's going to Villanova.
Now he's going to Nova. Kevin Willard, you've got a vet in your midst. Payton, your headline of the week, sir.
My headline is going to be, there's no Mizzou connection here, but it was just the biggest headline from the weekend, really. Browns trade up. This comes from Daniel Oyefusi. I'm so sorry. I'm definitely butchering your name. I'm sorry, Mr. Oyefusi.
Why would
Browns trade up.
You just said Mr. Daniel.
Mr. Daniel.
That's not proper. You don't do that with first names. Can you scroll back up, Kenny? So that we can have the headline in the headline segment. Browns trade up, pick Shedeur Sanders in 5th round of the NFL draft. This was easily the biggest headline from the weekend. Just a fall like I've really never seen in the NFL draft. You can say what you want about his personality, his talent, everything. I kind of do agree with the idea that maybe he didn't have round 1 talent, but the way quarterbacks are treated in the NFL draft, this was just kind of a shocker. The Browns finally took a chance after already drafting another QB in Dylan Gabriel. So now they have 5 QBs in that room. Deshaun Watson, who won't play this year. You have Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Shedeur, and you have Dylan Gabriel in that room. So going to be a pretty huge free-for-all to see who even starts out of that group. I wouldn't handicap a starter out of any of them. But yeah, just easily the biggest, kind of the most shocking thing of the weekend that a player who had his jersey retired this past offseason fell to the 5th round.
Well, you saw they're going to retire the 147th pick or whatever it was. Then no one's going to get drafted at that spot.
Right. Nobody will ever be picked 144th again.
The guy who tweeted that is a Houston radio host for the Texans. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah. This was. Go ahead, Kenny. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I make of it is just like you start to hear like all these rumors after the fact of like, he took a phone call or took a FaceTime call during, interviews with coaches, and all these rumors come in, and we don't know how much of it is actually true or just scouts putting stuff out there, sources putting stuff out there. It is pretty wild to see. And I was just wondering, I mean, how far could it go? Like, that was just the crazy thing for me. But see like a guy who had cameras on him on day 1 going day 3. That just doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
Like that's just something we just really have never seen before. And you kind of wish him the best of luck. I mean, I saw Shedeur play quarterback in high school. Like he played against my high school, and that was a crazy thing for us to see that. And I never really thought at this point, like he would be, what he is now. Like he was a 3-star in high school, committed to FAU, and then his dad got a coaching job. And so he followed his dad, but pretty incredible. Last kind of joke I had is that someone said like, "Oh, you should go back to college," which he couldn't do. But then I said, "What number would he wear?" That was the kind of thing for me.
Change. Yeah. I mean, I remember I was reading an Athletic article after day 2, and legitimately they were talking about, it's at a point where he slides so far. Like, does he go undrafted? Like, and Payton makes such a good point where it's especially the fact that he is a quarterback and how that position is valued. That said, if you would have told me Shedeur Sanders is going to slide to day 2 or day 3 of the draft. Guess which team drafts him? I would have said the Browns. The Browns would have been my first guess. Like, this is so Cleveland Browns to do this. It's so Cleveland Browns to do this and take, like Payton said, Dylan Gabriel. The other thing I think is wild too is like you say, Kenny, it's always wild with the drafts. You hear the stories after the fact. Why did a guy slide? What's true, what isn't. The Browns, I remember the big slide with the Browns, a decade ago now, over a decade ago now, was think about all the problems like Johnny Manziel had, and he only slid to like the end of the first round, and this is all the way to the 5th round. So that's like good, I feel like maybe context for how just wild this was to see him fall this far. But yeah, definitely the story of the weekend. And yeah, I guess we'll see. I don't remember the last time either. Like, do teams take 2 quarterbacks that often, Payton? I mean, I don't feel like I don't see that.
Did.
Okay.
When you see it, it happens typically first round and like way later,
way at the end, not
as like a backup or something,
as opposed to 2. And this was such a weird quarterback draft too overall, like just wild stuff. But yeah, Shedeur to the Browns.
Yeah, I have one more thing to throw out there. I know we're kind of pulling this. It's not really quick hits anymore, maybe long hits, but it did kind of feel like, like some of those guys that probably had like first round buzz, like in recent years, like Will Levis, like that was a weird one where he was just sitting around, the whole draft and then went in the 2nd round. Or was it Malik Willis, or is that the Liberty quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, he was another one where it was like first round buzz and then ended up not, I think he went in the 3rd round. So it's just one of those things where you could just fall at any time. And, all these guys that put out mock drafts, credit to all of them. You just never know. Like, you really never know what is actually being said in those war rooms, what's actually being said by those teams.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, if you guys are high profile prospects, I was having some conversations about this. Do you go to the draft anymore? I just feel like if I'm not an automatic like top 5 pick, yes, it's a cool moment, to celebrate, walk out on the stage, shake the commissioner's hand. You've got, with the drafts being in different places right now, like Matthew Golden, what he got to do with getting drafted to Green Bay and like already being there. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm like on that cusp. I don't think I'm going, because I don't want to be that guy, that Will Levis. Like, I feel like I wouldn't go. I don't know.
The NFL did it this year where this thing was one of the first times that they kind of put a cap on how many guys could come to the draft.
Yeah.
Make like there wasn't like one of those Will Levis moments anymore. Just like no embarrassments. The guys that are there are going to get drafted. They're not going to fall. I think that was one of the biggest things the NFL wanted to do this year.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I would have to be a surefire guy, I think.
Yeah. I think I agree. All right. My headline of the week. We'll finish off with some Mizzou news. I'm ripping this straight from the website, not even from an actual news outlet. But headline reads: Mizzou Athletics announces 2025 Hall of Fame class. We've talked about a couple of these inductees already, but it is a pretty star-studded cast. I'll just run through it quickly. 2025 inductees: Mike Alden, former AD; Bob Brendel, a former SID, shout out journalism; Sophie Cunningham, of course, from women's basketball; Alyssa Munlin from volleyball, played from 2015 to 2018; Brock Olivo, who Kenny has talked ad nauseum about; and Kareem Rush, friend of the show, inducted into the Mizzou Athletics Hall of Fame. I was going through just some of their accolades. This is a pretty fun read if you just want a nice walk back, especially down like the mid 2010s of Mizzou Athletics, and even some kind of early 2000s as well with people like Kareem Rush. Was pretty fun. My favorite note on any of them was actually it was about Bob Brendel, the former SID. They put in his little blurb that he computerized the Mizzou SID office, which I just thought was pretty funny. He computerized it. He bridged the intro to the internet for Mizzou Athletics, which, huge to take them forward. But yeah, you got like, obviously we know what Sophie Cunningham did. I actually totally forgot she won 4 state championships at Rockbridge. That was probably my favorite fact I relearned about her. But I don't know if y'all have any thoughts on...
they didn't whiff on her, huh?
Yeah.
Grew up right down the road.
Yeah. It took her talents. They put in there, like, took her talents just east, a little bit, a couple miles. If you guys have any notes on these inductees, feel free.
I mean, we talked about a few of them already. Pretty
talked
good
to one
group.
of them.
We'll talked to a family member of one of them. Pretty good group, honestly. Very, very recognizable names everywhere. I mean, most people aren't going to know Bob Brendel. But that's still, like you said,
What?
SID
The guy who
setup
computerized
tourism.
the Mizzou SID office?
Yeah.
Come on.
But just a pretty fun list all around. I know a lot of people are probably Mike Alden, obviously the way I think things ended, a lot of people weren't big fans of him, but you got to kind of look at the whole resume with Mike Alden. That's a pretty fair inductee. Pretty. I have no real complaint. I think it's a very good group going into the hall.
Hey, don't treat it like the Baseball Hall of Fame. It's not a.
I'm a small hall guy, but
All
like
these
every
seem fair.
single one of these guys and gals seems to deserve it pretty heavily.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I feel like we should hit on that resume too. I mean, he hired Gary Pinkel, like the greatest football coach in Mizzou history, like in our generation and like our lifetime. He was a part of that group that moved over to the SEC. I mean, it was a pretty stellar time for Mizzou athletics. A lot of big changes during his era. I just had one question for you guys. I know it's going to be like 15 years from now, but I mean, who do you think will go in and be like, oh my God, like I'm old, like that's where it kind of hits. And I know it's hard to say that. I had someone message me that I still kind of look really young on this show. I look a lot younger than you guys. I'm just, I just look a lot younger, no wrinkles, not aging at all. Hey, these are messages I get.
Older than both of us.
These are messages. I got a
Nobody
DM.
messaged you this. You're lying.
I could send you the DM right after this. I'll send you the screenshot. Who's your player?
The easy one is Kobe Brown. I mean, that's gonna be a I feel very old moment. I mean, he was literally our class in high school and college.
Yep.
That one will be a big one. The thing I don't want to get too in the weeds because then you start speculating who could get inducted, and that's a whole different conversation. But mine would be Kobe Brown.
I'm sure some from like gymnastics and softball will get in, like from our time there.
Oh,
like
Krings, that would be it.
Yeah, Krings will probably be in. Like I'm sure Helen Hugh will be in.
Brady Cook.
I don't know if Brady Cook.
I knew we were going to go down this road.
I think he would.
I'm not sure about. I hesitate on any like Brady Cook.
Was he ever an all SEC anything? Did he make?
No, that's the thing. He didn't really rake in a ton of accolades that weren't academic. I hesitate on pretty much anyone from that team right now because that's so recent. You kind of have to see how that holds up. If like Mizzou winds up being like a really stable presence going forward. And obviously, I'm sure part of it is like their NFL careers, I'm sure will kind of like raise their profile a bit too. So we'll see how that all goes.
It'll take time. Like Brock Olivo took. When did he finish his college career? Like in the 90s,
like early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
I can tell you, 94 to 97.
Yeah, there. So like
not even
90s.
In the 90s. Okay.
Yeah. So it'll take time. There'll be guys on the bubble, like maybe Brady. Maybe they do think about it just back on that era. At once Drinkwitz is gone, and maybe Mizzou has to reset at some point. And you think about those 2 10-win seasons. It'll be like one of those things you think about in maybe a decade.
Comment on YouTube if you're watching through the long hits and who would you like to see that hasn't been inducted into the Mizzou Athletics Hall of Fame. That's all I have. Boys, Payton, you got a joke to finish the show for us?
I sure do, Jack. This one comes from our favorite TV series, The Today Show. Guys, why did the deer go to the dentist? Is a layup.
I have a joke I'm going to say, but I'm not going to say it.
He had buck teeth.
Buck teeth.
He did have buck teeth. Good job, Kenny. Kenny, you got it. Pacers basketball. Let's go.
They play this evening at 8:30. All right. That'll do it for the show. Thank you again to Mr. Infante for doing the draft recap. We'll have more news. We're going to talk some GM and hoop stuff sometime next week, too. I know there was a comment about that, and I really want to get into that discussion because I think it's really interesting. So a little bit of a tease for next week. We'll ingrain that at some point. I've been Solo Screen. That's my cue. Thank you for watching, listening. Subscribe on the YouTube if you're listening. Follow us on Spotify or any of the podcast platforms where you're listening. Thanks so much to our grateful viewers. We'll see you next time. Bye.